This is the Fifth Estate, a conversation between young African scholars from the Fort Hall School of Government and Professor Mutahi Ngunyi. Today we will discuss the anti-Raila groundswell in NASA. But before we do it, we will give a story to Uhuru Kenyatta. Once upon a time, in a marshy swamp, the frogs wanted a king. And so they prayed, saying, "Mighty One, send us a king to establish order amongst us." God obliged, and so dropped a huge log into the swamp. At first, the frogs were horrified by this monster king. But with time, they discovered that the log was motionless. This frustrated them beyond. In their frustration, the bravest of the frogs jumped on the log. It did not strike back. Seeing this, all the other frogs mounted on the log and danced to their heart's content. Still, it did not strike. Discontented, the frog sent an SMS to God asking for a replacement. At first, God ignored it, but they persisted. So the Almighty dropped a stork to be their king. Unlike the motionless log, the stork was super active. He took their wives, ate their children, and tortured the rebels. Only then was order established.
For the last 4 years, Uhuru Kenyatta has been a motionless log king. He has allowed nondescript fellows to jump all over him. And these greenhorn politicians have enjoyed themselves galore. But from last week, Uhuru transformed himself into a vicious stork. Now the playful frogs are confused. They have called him the angry president. Even the crooked media has exposed the 10 times Uhuru had an outburst, as though it were a disease. Let's face it, Uhuru is angry. If you had a bunch of nondescript fellows jumping all over you, you would be angry. But anger is not necessarily bad. In fact, anger is a tool of power. It is a tool that establishes control, hegemony, and dominance. Its absence means indifference, especially where political stupidity is the order of the day. As Malcolm X taught us, evil flourishes because we are not angry enough to stop it. And this is why Uhuru Kenyatta must stay angry and stay tough, even if it means faking it. He must not backslide.
Now we take a break from Uhuru and address Raila. Mr. Odinga, sir, you are a sincere man, but for the most part, you are sincerely wrong. You're a clever tactician, but your sense of judgment is zero, more so before elections. Kindly consider our arguments, sir. Every election in Kenya has an object of aggression. In 2002, the election was anti-Moi. In 2007, the election was anti-Kikuyu. In 2013, the election was anti-ICC. But this election has no obvious object of aggression. You, Mr. Raila, are the object of aggression in this election. This election is increasingly becoming anti-Raila. In fact, the anti-Raila groundswell is growing, and this has nothing to do with Jubilee. This is a NASA affair. It is a conspiracy against you by NASA, and the conspiracy is being executed using guerrilla tactics. The posh boys of KANU in NASA are using the war of detachment. Mzee Moi taught them well. Now you see them, now you don't. And this is why Kalonzo is acting funny.
Mr. Raila, sir, this is what is happening to you in NASA. You are just like a frog that needs to be boiled. And the posh boys of KANU and NASA are using science to boil you. Let me explain. If you put a frog into boiling water directly, it will jump out and run away. However, if you put it in a pot of cold water, the frog will sit pretty. And if you increase the heat of the water in the pot, the frog will relax. The warmth will feel good, and as the water gets hotter, the frog will enjoy the steam bath, relaxing in it further. In this state of relaxation, it will get sleepy and dreamy. As the water gets hotter and hotter, the frog will become weaker and weaker. By the time water reaches boiling point, the frog will have no energy to jump out. And this is how it perishes in its dreams. Mr. Odinga, sir, you are just like this frog, and NASA is the boiling pot?
This week, the crooked media told us that Uhuru is angry. And then they told us that he was having uncontrollable eruptions. And the question we ask them is this: so what? What is wrong with getting angry when you're president? The presidency is not a nunnery or a school of monks. It is a hardcore institution where anger is an instrument of power. Uhuru used it brilliantly this week, and we think he should not backslide from this stance of toughness. He should continue like this. In fact, Raila should borrow a leaf from the Uhuru tantrums. Like Uhuru, he should use anger as an instrument of control. He should throw a tantrum from the blues on Kalonzo and the NASA posh boys who want to boil him alive like a frog. In fact, he should threaten them that he wants to quit NASA and accuse them of betrayal. If he erupts like Uhuru, he will control NASA. They will all come back running back to Baba. But if Kalonzo and the other erupt before him, they will control NASA and they will bury him instead.
Now we will address Kalonzo Musyoka and his mysterious ways. Mr. Former Vice President, sir, some will call you a traitor, but you know better. Others will call you a watermelon, but the country doesn't care. All these are titles given to you by your enemies to belittle you. What you did this week was manly, it was bold, and I'm sure the crooked media will be used to distort your act of courage. Standing up to Raila was heroic. But if you ever doubt yourself, you must remember the words of Marianne Williamson in a poem quoted by Nelson Mandela. She says, "Our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most." Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. Sir, to shrink in NASA in order to make Raila secure? Now that is to commit high treason.
Mr. Former Vice President, sir, allow us to repeat the following assertion. You were Raila's boss for 5 whole years, from 2007 to 2013. In fact, you're the only person that Kibaki endorsed for the presidency in the 2013 election. The other person with Kibaki's affection was Mudavadi, but he did not endorse him. But both of you were bullied out of the presidency by Raila. You became like the Arab and his camel. In this story, the Arab went on a long journey through the desert. At night, he stopped, pitched his tent, and tied his camel outside. But the night was so cold, and so the camel asked the Arab if he could put his head in the tent. The Arab agreed. Then the camel asked if he could put his neck and front legs into the tent. The Arab obliged. And then the camel complained that his hump was too cold. The Arab allowed the camel to put it in the tent as well. In the end, the entire camel got into the tent and kicked out the Arab. And this is what happened to you in 2013. You were kicked out of the presidency. Do not allow a repeat this year.
Now we will address Kalonzo, Mudavadi and Wetangula, and we will take them back to the Moi cookbook of politics. In this book, Moi taught us that come on buyer, buyer. If it is not working, it is not working. Do not pretend. This NASA thing is not working, and the problem is Raila. If the three of you held talks without Raila, NASA will be safe, and Raila will panic. This is because 70% of NASA is made up of Kalonzo, Mudavadi, and Wetangula votes. Raila is just a parasite. This is why you must up the Kalonzo game of this week. The three of you must do a tea party without Raila. You must shortchange him, or he will shortchange you. As Mzee Moi taught us, do unto others before they do you. If you do not sort out the Raila political hypnosis around you, Raila will negotiate with Uhuru, negotiate with the devil if he has to, and negotiate with anyone with powers to take him to State House. You must stop this.